2015 will go down in Nigerian history as the year President Muhammadu Buhari became the first politician to succeed a sitting leader by ballot. The 72-year-old general, who first came to power 3 decades ago via a military coup, campaigned as a born-again Democrat and won a clear lead over outgoing President Goodluck Jonathan. Buhari promised to defeat Islamist militant group Boko Haram and vowed to tackle graft in Africa's largest economy. He also had to deal with the fallout from a dive in global oil prices. Some analysts feared he would struggle to shake off his past.
The transformation from dictatorship of the Decree 2 of 1984, Decree 2 of 1983, to a person who now has to go to National Assembly and present budget and take questions, to somebody who would propose a particular policy and you discover that Nigerians said no, it will take time.
Buhari has so far gained praise for a high-profile campaign against corruption and a hands-on approach to security challenges. Much of the territory controlled by militant group Boko Haram has been retaken by Chadian and Nigerian forces. Nevertheless, the militants continue to kill hundreds of people in bombings and shootings. Buhari was, however, criticized for being too slow when it took him months to formulate a cabinet. As Buhari worked on his first term, presidents in Burundi, Congo Democratic, Congo Republic and Rwanda were caught in debate over how many times they could constitutionally run for office. Burundi was thrown into chaos in late April when Pierre Nkurunziza announced he would seek a third term, which opponents and Western powers said violated the constitution and provisions of a peace deal that ended a 1993 to 2005 civil war between the Hutu majority and the Tutsi minority. After months of protests that left dozens dead and prompted 180,000 people to flee the country, Nkurunziza was sworn in on August 20th for another 5-year term.
What we're likely to see in Burundi is a continuation of instability. Refugees are still not returned to Burundi in large numbers. They're still concerned, and they are present in Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, and the Democratic Republic of Congo. And those refugees remain a concern for the host countries. What we would not like to see, obviously, is a situation where people who are in the opposition now further radicalize and decide to join armed movements. But even if that were the case, it's uncertain whether they'd have the means to sustain any large conflict against the government.
On December 17, a UN official said Burundi was on the verge of civil war because of a campaign of political repression in which at least 400 people were killed and almost 3,500 arrested. In Togo, the Constitutional Court swore in incumbent President Gnassingbé for a third term following a largely peaceful election that extended his family's rule to more than half a century. Gnassingbé has been president since 2005 when his father Gnassingbé Eyadema died after 38 years in charge of the West African nation. Despite tensions that followed the announcement of his victory and saw regional leaders travel to Lomé to mediate, Togo avoided the kind of post-election violence that saw hundreds killed in the aftermath of previous polls. President Omar Hassan al-Bashir extended his quarter century in power with landslide election victories for himself and his ruling party and dismissed allegations voters were denied any real choice. Most opposition parties boycotted the poll.
There is a kind of dissatisfaction in regard to the government performance at this stage, and at the same time there is a general feeling that this election will change nothing and will achieve nothing new. The result is known and the winner is known, so there are no ambitions in making a change in the general policies. There is no enthusiasm towards voting, and there is no desire to know the results because there will be no surprise.
A similar winning sweep happened in Ethiopia in May when the ruling party took all seats in the election to the 547-member parliament. Opposition activists accused the authorities of irregularities and squeezing them out of politics, a charge government officials dismissed.
I knew that EPRDF would win the election, but not with a 100% sweep. The fact that it is a 100% sweeping victory has surprised me. I knew the outcome because I have been following the government media and the results that were being posted in the different localities. However, no one expected this because we were expecting at least a few opposition members would join the parliament somehow.
It was the first legislative election since Prime Minister Desalegn Hailemariam took office following the death of long-serving leader Meles Zenawi in 2012. Ethiopia's economy has been expanding at about 9% per year, but the impressive growth has not accommodated a large part of the population. It is one of the reasons a growing number of economic migrants from the East African nation joined the exodus to Europe and some parts of the Middle East. We met a group of young part-time minibus taxi drivers planning to save enough money to get out of the country, despite hearing about thousands of migrants dying on risky journeys.
I just want to leave this country and try my luck. I want to improve my living condition, even if I have to do that by risking my life. I have no belief that I can work and change my living standard here.
The dangers faced by those seeking refuge in Europe came to the fore this year as thousands died on their way to what they hoped would be a better life. In South Africa, where thousands from around the continent seek economic opportunity, a wave of anti-immigrant violence claimed several lives. Outbreaks of such violence are blamed on high unemployment in South Africa. Abdulishola Adeyemi, a Nigerian national with a business making and selling shoes and groceries in Durban, planned to leave after the violence in April.
We don't have to call this place our second home anymore. We have to prepare them. We sell out our property and go back home, or to go and establish our money in next year.
According to census data, South Africa has an estimated 1.7 million foreigners living within its borders, but many claim the figure to be much higher. Thousands of migrants fled South Africa on buses during the violence. Namibia's former president Hifikepunye Pohamba won the Mo Ibrahim Foundation's $5 million African Leadership Prize, an award meant to recognize good governance that had only been presented 3 times before in 8 years.